Barn Talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan. It's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my friend.
Hey, folks, welcome to Real Barn Talk. I am super excited about tonight. I got Jeremy Ivy with me again tonight, and I'm gonna tell you, we got him home. He's off the road for a little bit, and we're wearing him out. We're gonna use him. He preached in the barn last night, and we just got to do a podcast on Peter and about betrayal and about not going too far, and it was awesome to me. So you helped me a ton with that. But this one I would like to talk about is about forgiveness, and not just your everyday forgiveness. We do a lot of things in the daytime that Lord help me with my shortcoming today. Then there's some things in life that's huge.
Yeah.
Things that's been done, things that's happened, and we'll talk about some of those if you don't mind and comfortable with that, because as Dana used the word a minute ago, big forgiveness,
Yeah.
and how and where we need to place that and how to get deal with that. And because some people, and I know people, and we just talked about this a little bit, but I know people who just can't forgive because they don't know how to forgive. And maybe something we can say, maybe can help somebody, or something we can say, maybe someone else could take to somebody else and help them.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know in my case, and I'll just share it, just the start of it, and then I'll turn it over to you. But in my case, I come from a divorced family. My mom and dad divorced when I was young, 6 years old, and my dad moved us back to Alabama, and that's how we ended up. We're from here originally, but then that we moved to Michigan. They did the work, and then I was born up there.
Yeah.
And then they moved us back here. My dad did to get us out of the way, and so he could go on about life and do his thing. And I didn't understand that as a kid. I didn't ever understand all of that. Most kids don't. Um, looking back as an adult, I have more respect for my mother today and my dad. I do. I have a ton of respect for both of them. They're both passed on now, but I have a ton of respect. But for my mother, she was bitter.
Yeah.
My dad, he scorned her. He left her and for another woman, and my mother lived bitter the rest of her life, and that was sad, and that was, and it caused problems for us as kids, because you want to see your mother happy, you want to see happiness, and my mom struggled with that, on with it, and because she loved my dad.
Yeah.
She really truly loved my dad, and when you see somebody, it was a sad time for all of us kids. Every one of us turned out okay, and none of us are, we've we've all been blessed, I guess is the word. So I'm thankful for that. So forgiveness for me was never a big issue for either one of mine. They couldn't live together, and it's sad, and I hated that, but I didn't have any control over that. So as I've grown older, I don't have any ill will to how I needed to forgive, or to what I use it as an excuse.
Yeah.
And as coming up through my days and growing up, and I spoke about this before in my testimony, but I thought I had an excuse for everything, just because of the way my mom and dad divorced, and the way I thought I had an excuse for everything that went on in my life. I had an excuse for it because of.
Yeah.
Boy, was that a lie. I was lying to myself the whole time and had no idea I was doing it until the Lord started dealing with me. And then right before the tent revival, on that Wednesday night before the first night, I stood up, and we had kind of a confessionary message service anyway. And it was kind of amazing on a Wednesday night right before the tent revival. But looking back at it now, it was so important that we had that, because some people stood up, like everybody there. It was like unbelievable how people were popping up and saying, I need to forgive him for this, and I need to forgive him for that. Mine, I don't know, third, fourth, fifth person to stand up, and I told him, I said, I was sitting here listening to some of this, and I said, I need for y'all to forgive me. I said, but I need to ask a lot of people to forgive me for my excuses.
Yeah.
I said, because I felt like I have an excuse for everything I do. I use an excuse for it. And can't do that anymore. I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
You know, if I do it, I gotta own it. I gotta own it. And that helped me a ton. And there's others that went with a lot of different things, but that was a big one. So for me, but you can go and share some of yours because I know it's pretty big.
So yeah, they say, which I'm working on a book. I'm finally writing a book. I've had a lot of people tell me I need to write a book, and so I got the title.
Yeah.
I got the title, and it's The Kingdom's Percentage. And statistics, play a big factor in what the modern world and what we do, because you said excuses.
Mhm.
We'll make excuses for things because we'll say, well, because this happened to me, I do this. Because this happened, I do that. Because of this, I do that. And so we will make excuses for those things.
Mhm.
And I wish, when it comes to love, I will say this. The first place I ever remember living in, memories wise, we lived in this place called Hogjaw Valley. And my mom,
I actually know what's that too.
yeah, that's out there. And
Mhm.
but my mom, I remember church all the time,
Mhm.
church. And my mom used to tell me, when I got older, she said, as soon as you were walking, she said, even before you were walking, you were trying to preach. She said, you get something and you just be jibber jabbering away. And so I remember, when I remember going to school, and the kids I went to school with, wanted to be a police officer, fireman, a doctor. I knew there was something in me. I always knew I was going to be a preacher. And if I wasn't going to do that, I was going to be a WWF wrestler. Yeah, I want to.
Well, there's a big change.
I wanted to be a pro wrestler, but obviously,
Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah, obviously that didn't happen. Yeah, yeah, it's about the same sometimes,
They do have some similarities, don't they? Now just think about it.
But mom took me to church, and I remember like being at service and seeing people get slain in the spirit, see miracles and holy rolling and bobby pins and all that kind of stuff. And I remember running around, and that little house that we lived in Hogjaw, I'd have a spoon in my hand, a ratchet, anything I get my hand on, and I'd run around preaching. Well, my mom was really protective of me, and some of this stuff, and I shared this in my testimony a lot. Uh, because my mom lived and died and never knew about some of this because of I was so worried of what my mom would think of me, or when there's things that you experience in your life, you don't know how to deal with it,
Mm.
you don't know how to carry it. And so when I was about 6 years old, we had went over to a family member's house, and this family member, one of the family members that was in the house, took me into a room, and I had no idea, what was going on, um, and lost every bit of my innocence.
Mm.
And when that happened, the and I didn't even realize it. There's things that you go through at the time you don't realize what effect it has on you. I stopped doing the running around and preaching and stuff, and I stopped pretending like I had a microphone, because I've experienced something's happened to me. Somebody's took something from me. I didn't ask for it. And now a dream has died. To me, a dream
Yes.
has died. That doesn't mean that it's like we talked about before. It doesn't mean that it's over. Where some people think that they've went too far. Some people think that they've had so much happen to them that God can't heal them.
Mhm.
And I want to get into that. So I didn't run around preaching anymore. I didn't run around and doing all that stuff. And so my mom and dad, during this time, my mom and dad get a divorce. Dad goes to prison. So statistically, and we were poor too. I remember when we lived in Hogjaw Valley. This is what was funny, was somebody at our church that gave me one of them radio flyer red wagons. Kids, they don't know what that is. They know what an iPad is. They don't know what a red wagon is.
I know.
we would go. There where that little house, a shack was really what it was. We would walk to a well, and Mom would keep milk jugs, and we'd walk to the well, fill the milk jugs up. So when you come into where we lived, um, you'd see milk jugs all through there. But statistically, because I was born into poverty, broken home,
Mhm.
and now being sexually abused, um, statistics are against me.
Yes.
I was looking up the statistics of, people who have experienced sexual abuse. They end up spending their life, they grow up on antidepressants, some kind of pharmaceutical aid to help them if they don't end up taking their life, or they end up in jail. Because the world portrays this picture
Mhm.
that when you've been through that, there's there's no alternative. There's no way of getting over it. And the sad thing is too, is that even in churches, a lot of times, there are churches that don't encourage that God will help you,
Yeah.
but you've got to let Him.
Mhm.
That's the thing. And so, um, uh, we lived next door to my uncle, and I'll never forget, like my uncle, he'd begged my mom. He had 3 boys, and my cousins, we were over there, and he begged my mom. He said, "Let Jeremy come over." Now, my mom didn't drink. I never seen anything. I mean, mom, even though I went through that, and as I could kind of tell, looking back at my life, I could see where I started pulling back from, what I used to do.
Right.
And that same I was still a happy kid, but I was like, how do I tell my mama? Because everybody loved this family member. Nobody's going to believe, and so it was really, it was a rough time. And I felt like I just wanted to be accepted because you feel like something's wrong with you.
Mhm.
I felt like something was wrong with me and didn't know what it was. So my uncle, he asked my mom to let me come over and play with, my cousins. So I get over there and he leaves and comes back a few hours later and he's drunk as a skunk. I mean, drunk. And the 3 of us, we were in the floor playing and he comes in, kicks the door open and he's yelling. He tells us to get up on the couch and he's yelling at my aunt in the kitchen and he's like, "Debbie Ann," he's like, "I want some hot dogs, make me some hot dogs." And she's yelling back, "Anthony Ray, we don't have no hot dogs." And this is going back and forth. He's drunk, they're hollering, they're cussing. This is not something that I'm used to seeing. And so I'm kind of, my world, I've experienced something that no child at the age of 6 should experience. Now I'm experiencing something I've never seen in my own home. And my uncle then yells to my aunt. He says, "You either fix me those hot dogs or I'm gonna kill these boys."
Mhm.
This is his own son. Now he had this big blade, this big sword above his couch, and he reaches up and he gets that sword and he puts it to all 4 of our throats. And I remember I was crying and thinking to myself, as a little boy, the shock, no kid, nobody wants to go, but it's your family member.
Mhm.
Some experience as another family member, who's supposed to be a somebody that affirms me. Somebody's supposed to be encouraging to me. So I've experienced sexual abuse from one. Now I'm experiencing a traumatic, threatening to kill me from another one. And so then I've got my dad's not there. My dad ain't in the picture.
Mhm.
So it's like every positive role model, the only role model that I had was Mama and Jesus.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, I was a little boy. I'd only hear about Jesus in church, and I'd see Jesus through the way Mama lived. But then that's why we need men in homes.
That's right.
We need fathers. We need fathers.
That's exactly right.
And I'll never forget about that time. Mama was next because she lived in the house, next door, and she was praying.
Mhm.
And when I got older, I always loved hearing her talking about it. She said, I was praying, and she said, the Holy Ghost told me I needed to get next door because my brother was being stupid. And I laugh about it now.
Boy, she right.
And I tell people, I said, we keep hot dogs in the fridge all the time now.
Mm.
But there was a bang on the door, and my uncle, he yelled, he said, "Who is it?" And he goes to the door and slings the door open, and there stands my little 5 foot tall mama. And he dropped that sword on the floor and he said, "I'm sorry, sissy." And mama jumped on him like a spider monkey
Mhm.
and grabbed him by his ears. And mama, she was a little bitty thing, 5 foot tall, if that, barely 100 pounds soaking wet. She was born, she had, 2 holes in her lungs and had a lot of issues, but man, she had a lot of faith. But uh, those things that happen, traumas, losing positive influence, the world will say, well, you have every excuse to not have any hope. You have every excuse not to ever trust anybody. You have every excuse not to ever think that it's going to get any better. You got one uncle's molested you. You've been molested. Now you've been raped. Now you got an uncle that's tried to kill you over. He was drunk. Your dad wasn't there. You're poor. All of these things. It's a powder keg. It is
Mm-hmm.
a powder keg of things going on. And so I gave up on running around preaching. You know, I I remember like my mom told me, she said, you used to have an imaginary friend, and I was like, really? She said, yeah. She said, you'd be out there playing with your imaginary friend. Kids, their imagination, that's a gift from God, imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing the lack when this wasn't anything against my mom because my dad should have been there. And I've forgiven him. Uh, but she came outside one day. She said, I was just sitting out there quiet. And she said, well, I can't even remember what my imaginary friend's name was. And she said, where's he at? And I was like, oh, he died.
Mm.
But I killed my imagination, because all of these things. So that's one of the ways the enemy works without a vision. People perish. And it's the imagination. It's a gift from God. The imagination to dream, the imagination to create something that God gives you. But traumatic experiences, you create walls to stop the imagination. You stop thinking outside of the box. You stop thinking because what the world does, it says there's no way out. The world says, that's the enemy. It's a tactic of the enemy. And but we have the power to believe it. We can either believe it or we can say no. The blood is bigger. The blood is greater. And so fast forward, I'm 12 years old. Um, Still don't have a father figure in my life. My mom taught me how to shave. She taught me how to tie a tie. She taught me how to iron clothes. She taught me how to cook. She taught me how to change a tire. My mom, because she was the runt of the family, my granddaddy was in the military, in the Navy, and he taught my mama how to box because she was the runt. So she had 5 brothers, and it was her and my aunt, and 5 brothers. And so she had to box, being a little bit. So mama taught me boxing, so like my granddaddy. And so then when the only male figure that I had that was really any stability would be my grandpa when we'd go over, and he was drunk all the time.
Mm.
And so by the time I'm 12 years old, mom's still going to church, um, and I'm growing. I don't have that father figure in my life. I'm still dealing with things in my life nobody knows about because of the shame of it. You think, what's wrong with me? You feel like there's something wrong with you because, for one, I'm getting bullied in school because we're poor. Mom was on disability. She drew Social Security. And then you're like, this has happened to me. I'm seeing all of these people, parent teacher, that are their parents, that come to school and stuff. And I was like, well, my dad wasn't showing up. My dad's in prison, or they'd have a career day and they'd have an uncle show up. Or my uncle, I wouldn't want that one coming because he did this to me. I wouldn't want that one coming because he did that to me. And so it's constantly surrounded, and there's so much bitterness, there's so much anger that's in me, confusion that's in me, hate that's in me because of all these things. And my mom finally gets introduced to this guy. And I tell people all the time, it's everybody can let their guard down. We all let our guard down. We all fall. We all make mistakes. And boy, my mama, she let her guard down because she met this guy. She was introduced to this gentleman, and man, he knew how to talk. He told my mama everything she wanted to hear, but he knew the way to get to her was get to me.
Yeah.
And so during this time, um, they used to have the Monday Night Wars. It was WCW. We'd watch Monday Nitro together. Mama would watch it with me, or WWF, and uh, Mama would do it. You should watch it with me, but it wasn't the same because now there's a guy. Mama's
Mm-hmm.
talking to this guy, and he's telling me all these things. See, I'd never been hunting before. Still, this day, I'm 41 years old. I've never been hunting kill a deer.
Yeah.
And that's on my bucket list. And one day I'm gonna kill me a deer. But he tells me all these things. This is how the enemy operates. He tells me, he said, I'll take you hunting. He said, we'll kill you a deer. Well, I'll take you out there, let you kill a deer. I'll take you fishing. I got an old Mustang in my shop. He said, me and you will rebuild it together. He said, that'll be your first car. Everything a boy who has not had a father figure in his life,
Yeah.
I'm hearing all of these things, hearing all of it. And I'm just like, yeah. And so him and mom start dating. He'd come over on Mondays, we'd watch pro wrestling together. I'm loving it, man. It's everything that I've ever wanted. Then they get married. Now we had people that, there were people that warned mom and, she, against her better judgment, she did not listen, some godly counsels like Sister Sybil, you don't need to do this. And she carried that forgiveness that we talked about, forgiving yourself. I know I went too far. And that was one thing she struggled with for a long time. She did because she failed. But I was so glad to see the day she forgave herself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a powerful thing. Well, they get married,
Mm.
and when they got married, that was when the reality of who he was came out. I,
Yeah.
they got married, and everything changed. He come to find out he was big time drug dealer, and he was verbally abusive to mom every day. Verbally abusive. I tell people the best way I could describe him verbally was if you ever saw that movie Sling Blade with Dwight Yoakam.
Mm-hmm.
That character he played, Doyle. That was, and then you amp that up.
I still don't like him because of that.
You amp that up. You amp
Yeah.
that up to 1,000,000, and that was Hal.
Yeah.
That was Hal. Um, he was verbally abusive to mom, and I remember the day that we were out at his shop. We were working on his car. I didn't know anything about cars, Raj. I didn't know a thing about cars.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me to go get this part or something to part or a tool. I can't remember what it was, but I brought him the wrong thing. And he took a broom. He's like, "Are you stupid? What's wrong with you?" And he said, You're going to learn. You're going to learn." And there's things, that I still remember.
Yeah.
And he took a broom. Those the Amish brooms. I think it's the Amish people or the Shriners. It was them brooms that they get them straw brooms.
Mm-hmm.
He took one of those and he beat me with that thing until there wasn't nothing left but the straw. Broke the broom over me, and it was like walking on eggshells every day. And Mama would still go to church. And I remember during this time, I hated church. I hated, it got to the point I almost hated my mom,
Mm-hmm.
because there's part of me that blamed her every day. Every day it was, in a form of abuse. He took one day, I got a scar. I tell people about it, and I know they won't be able to see about it. I don't think I ever showed it to you. And I know this is a tough podcast. It's tough talking about all this, but I know it'll help somebody. I got this scar. It's right here on my arm.
Mm-hmm.
And he took and he cut me. We lived in Bryant. And he said, "I'm gonna tell you how much power I got on this mountain."
Mm-hmm.
He took that knife and cut me open. He said, "Ain't nobody can do anything about this." And I was terrified of him. And Mama was too. You know, there were things that she found out after the fact when we finally left that was going on. Like Mama started me on the drums when I was 4. She put me in her lap because she could play the drums. So I was the drummer at church. Well, Hal, here I am, 12 years old, about to be 13. He would sneak me into. They'd have their little club things. They'd be dealing drugs and stuff. They'd be having to playing music, and here I am, 13 years old, 12 and 13 years old, playing the drums
Mm-hmm.
while grown men are snorting, shooting up. 2 brothers getting into a fight over $20 worth of weed.
Yeah.
Seeing, that was seeing, 2 brothers one kill another over $20 worth of weed. Never growing up in church, and even though it was like everything amplified. It went from my dad not being there. It went from, you know, because when I didn't even know we were poor. I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that was the good old days.
Absolutely.
And so I go from that to my dad not being there. Then I go from sexual abuse of a family member, verbal and emotional abuse of another family member to now this, to getting beat every day. Now it's just like any hope that my life was ever going to be any different was gone. And I would beg my mom to leave him, and she would leave him. And then I'll never forget one day, and I'm trying not to take too long.
You're fine.
He would have me answer the door. This is how bad it was. He would have me answer the door because if he really made somebody mad, and when he'd be on edge, drugs wise, somebody knock on the door, he'd send me to the door as a shield.
Mm.
I mean, that's how. I mean, me and my mama saw a lot of stuff during that time because I was more like he would rather me catch a bullet than him. So I'll never forget one day, and it was my responsibility to answer the door every time. It didn't matter. I was to go to the door. So one day, it'd been a rough day for me. Been a rough day for Mama. Like I remember Mama had cooked him some food, and if he didn't like something, we knew about it. And he took every bit of what Mama cooked one night, and he threw it out in the yard. And we got a knock on the door, and he done rattled me a few times. He caught me a couple times that day. And got a knock on the door, and I knew not to. He should never even have to tell me. I mean, it was scary, sometimes. And I went to the door, and when I opened the door, it was 2 county police officers.
Mm.
And for me, I got this big possum grin on my face because I was like, "Man, you're fixing to get yours." And I remember I turned around and I had this big smile on my face. I was like, "Hal, it's for you," because I knew they weren't there for me,
Right.
And he goes, "Oh yeah, okay." And I'm thinking they're fixing to cuff him up, take him off. Now, I want to say this. I know there are good police officers. I know there are good police officers.
Yes.
And there are some bad apples too, unfortunately. He goes to his room, gets a bag, goes outside. They have a little chit chat. They exchange some stuff, and he goes right back in. Because what I found out was to some of them, he was more valuable outside than he was on the inside.
Mm.
So then I've lost every trust, everything. Because you got to think as a kid, the police are the superheroes, and they are. Like I said, there's still some good ones. So my dad, I have no trust in him. I have no trust in my uncles. I have no trust in my stepdad, and all of these things. By the time I'm 13 years old, I have now experienced every form of abuse. Well, Mom finally leaves, and she would leave, and there was a time there during 97, 96, 97 that like I spent the how much of a whirlwind it was going back and forth. Like I went to Woodville School for a week.
Mm.
Mom would leave him and go back, and then because Mama was one of them, she's like, I can change you, I can change you.
Yep.
And during that time that they were married, he never laid a hand on her while they were together. And Mama would still go to church. And there'd be times that he would do stuff to me, and he's like, "If you tell your mama, I'll kill you." And there'd be times where it was not sexual abuse; it was physical.
Yeah.
And I remember
It's just as bad.
he kicked me so hard one time, and he told me, he said, "If you say a word to your mama," he said, "I'll kill her. You'll never see her again." And so in my mind, I couldn't understand why. All my life, we've been in church and all this, and I know what it is when you have those traumas that feel like they're drowning you. And Mama still going to church, I'd hear Mama praying all hours of the night, And so Mama finally left him, and we moved to Bridgeport. The projects in Bridgeport. So where Bridgeport Middle School is, where Bridgeport Middle School is. So there's some projects right there behind Bridgeport Middle School. That's where we lived. So it's literally the projects and the road and the school. So every day it was just a walk, And I had just signed up to play football. I mean, it was like we got out of there and it was a fresh start. we're finally away from the boogeyman,
Mhm.
and Mama was bedridden sick. Like I said, she had some issues in her body, and I was a mama's boy. And my cousin Tony was one of my cousins who was at the house when my uncle went nuts over the hot dog. He was in a play. My cousin Tony was, and my mom bedridden sick. She told me, she said, "Son, you need to go over there and be, show family support." Because my uncle wasn't going to be there. Nobody else from the family was going to be there. If Mama hadn't been sick, she was going to be there too. But I didn't want to leave her.
Mhm.
Mama told me after the fact, she said the Lord had showed her what we were fixing to go through. And so she knew I didn't need to be there. It's crazy how, the Lord, the Lord will show people things. If you want to be, you got to open yourself up to it. And I, I also knew, as much as I didn't want to, because I was like, Mom, I don't want to go. I also knew not to backtalk my mom.
Mhm.
As even though she was a little old bitty thing, I was terrified of that woman. But I respected her. That was my mom, and I loved her. So begrudgingly, I went, and I was over there for about an hour. And about that time, a friend of ours uh, got my teacher. My teacher came and got me there in the auditorium. And when they got me to the doors of the auditorium, there was my mom's friend's daughter. Her name's Karina. And she said, "We got to go, bud. We got to go." And the auditorium doors, when we opened the auditorium doors, you could see the lights from the police cars and the ambulance. And I knew, I knew something had happened. And I remember running. When I got over there, there was police cars, there was an ambulance, fire truck, and they had somebody on a stretcher. I couldn't make out who it was. Just because it was dark outside or nothing, because there was so much light,
Mhm.
you know. Uh, so while I was over there, literally 30 seconds after I crossed the road, Al and his girlfriend got into the apartment where Mom was in the bed, and they took and they began to beat her because Mom had all this information, all of his drug deals. She knew all of these things. She had all this information. So she and myself were considered loose ends. Mama had no desire. She was not going to, she wanted out. She wanted to get
Yeah.
her kid out. She wanted us to be safe. She was trying to protect her son. She was not, had no intention. Any information that she had was going to die with her. She wasn't going to. And I had so much hate. I didn't even want to talk about him. I just
Mhm.
wanted away. And, but he looked at it as, I got to kill her. And if I would have been there, he'd have killed me. And so while they're in there, they're beating my mom. They shoved pills down her throat, hit her in the head with a hammer. Before all that stuff, she was praying. And it was in the, when they were it was in the court, come up in the court stuff because they ended up going to trial over it. And his girlfriend, Mama, said that she remembers her asking, "What is she saying?" And then Hal said, "I don't know, just hit her till she stops."
Mm.
And Mom said, "I don't remember anything after that." They left her for dead. She had lost control of her bodily functions. She didn't remember crawling next door. So when I got over there, I'm yelling for
Mhm.
her. And I remember him
Mm.
wheeling her by me. And I yelled out that last time. I said, "Mama." And about that time, she said, "Son." And I looked down there. She was.
Mhm.
She was in the hospital for about a month with, everything she went through. She was in there for a while. So we ended up staying with some family friends of ours. And if I didn't hate, man, then I sure hated now. And I hated the Lord because to me, my mama was my best friend, and I could not understand how the Lord would let somebody go through all that. And I want you to know the first thing my mama wanted to do when she got out was she wanted to go to church.
Mhm.
And so we went. Now, during all this time, right, the DA had told us, we needed to do everything we could to just, not bring any attention to ourselves. Like I used to draw a lot, and I'll still kind of piddle around now, but nowhere like I used to. And I won an award in my 8th grade class. Um, I drew this picture, and I won, and it got put in the Heritage Center in Scottsboro,
Mm.
but they couldn't have my picture to it. I'd never won anything. I'd never won anything before, and now that was like that was something else that was took from me. And so it's like, trauma after trauma. It's like bitterness. All this stuff is just building up. And I was just done. I was done. I was so mad. And Mama would try to talk to me about the Lord. And I'll never forget. Um, it was like a week because we had to leave. We was living in those projects and we ended up having to move. And Mama had it was some kind of help that we got to be able to move. And we couldn't tell nobody where we were at for a little while because of all the stuff that was going on. But I'll never forget, Mama was watching TBN one day. I was in my room and I was packing stuff up. It's like I didn't have a normal life. All this, like we had right before this had happened. Mom gets out of the hospital. He finds out she's still alive, and they come to try to find us to kill us. I'll never forget this. But they call 911. We're laying in the floor of a trailer with the lights off, and they took us to Hope Place in Huntsville for women and children, battered women and
Mhm.
children. And I was like, I can't even have a normal life. I can't have whatever, I just didn't understand. And so then we found out he turned himself in, and then I had to get a taxi to bring us back. And then as soon as we pull up in my mom's friend's yard, she walks out on the porch and she's like, they let him go. I mean, this
No.
guy, he had just
Yeah.
a stack of stuff, but he was more valuable to him on the outside than he was inside. And so then it's like, I'm done. I'm literally, it's just like, whatever. I have no expectations. I have no hope for anything. I don't care. We're going to church services and I'm just sitting there and I'm numb. I don't care. It's like whatever, nothing's going to change. And I remember we were sitting in that apartment and Mom was watching TV. And I just finished packing the last box. I got up and I walked through and I looked over. I said, I don't see how you can watch that garbage. That little woman got up and she grabbed me by my
Mhm.
collar, picked me up off the floor. She said, if I ever hear you talk about the Lord, don't you ever talk about God's people again. And I broke. I said, Mom, I don't understand how you can have confidence in him after everything we've been through. She said, son, we don't know now. She said, but one day we will,
Mhm.
And, Job said, though he slay me,
Mhm.
yet will I trust him. Well, Mama seen that she talked about, she said, I knew I wasn't that she wasn't being serious with the Lord, but she was praying that God would do something because she gave me to the Lord when I was a baby. That's one thing she talked about. She said, I gave him to the Lord and I made a vow to the Lord that I always raise him in church. And so there was a youth conference or a youth revival was going on. And all of this stuff I've talked about, from the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, all of it, it all came to a head.
Mm.
It all came to a head at this little youth revival. It's this Bible Way Holiness Church.
Mm.
I remember this is when everybody was wearing yin yangs. Remember, and I had my bugle boys on.
Bugle Boys. I ain't heard that name.
Yeah. And so Mama said, we're going to go to this youth revival. And I was like, I don't want to go. She said, I don't care what you want to do. You're going. And it's like, well, I ain't going to like it. I'll go, but I ain't going to like it. Yeah. And so I remember I sat on the back row. And through all of those things that happened, there were some things in my life as a little boy that I forgot that I used to try to be. I aspired to be. Boy, did I know that the Lord had a card up his sleeve.
Mm.
And I remember preachers would come by me, because everybody knew me. And, they try to shake my hand. I'd mean mug them, give them a stink eye. And then if Mama was looking, I'd
Yeah.
almost smile. I knew better. Well, that young guy got up and he started preaching. His name was Rusty Pearson. I don't know what happened to him. I've looked him up. I've tried finding him on Facebook, because I just want to tell him what the Lord's done now. He was up preaching, and I'll never forget it, Roger. I mean, I was sitting back there, and it's like everything he was saying was hitting me. And piece by piece, things began to fall off of me. And he gave old-fashioned prayer line call for a prayer line.
Mm.
I don't remember the third step. I don't remember the fifth one. I just remember the first one. And I remember 13 years old. I got in that line because I was tired.
Yeah.
And I got up there, and next thing you know, he started reading me like a book. There was no way in this world he could have known what he known. He started telling me all the things, he said, you got bitterness and hatred and this, that, and the other. And he said, I see you like this old sheep. He said, it's got blood on it. It's been ripped. It's dirty. It's tattered. And he said, you don't have any hope of this thing being anything. He said, but you've not put it in the right hands yet.
That's right.
And he said, I see the hands of the Lord just cleaning you up and sewing you up and putting you back together and getting all the wrinkles out. And then this is what he said. This wrecked me. It wrecks me every time I think about it because it's how much the Lord loves us, that he won't let us lose our imagination. He won't let us give up on our dreams. He said, you used to run around and preach with a spoon in your hand. He said, you forgot that little boy that used to run around and preach. He said, through all the hardship, through all the trauma, he said, you forgot that boy. He said, but Jesus never did. And you want to talk about just, because there's people that are going to watch this and you're going to think that the Lord's forgot you. You're going to think that all of that stuff, it's over with. It's not over with. It's not. And we were poor. Mom was on a fixed income, and they had this youth camp coming up. They called it Tag Youth Camp, Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. And he said, he told my mom, he's like, I want you to sign this paper. The registration was $120. Mama didn't have that, she just didn't have it. And she says, I'm sorry. She said, I can't. She said, I want him to go, but I can't. I don't have the money. He said, ma'am, I just need you to sign it. She's like, I don't have the money. He says, you don't understand. He said, I'm going to pay for him to go. He said, because God's going to change his life. He said, I just need you to sign the release. Mom signs the release for him. And I remember we got there Wednesday. And I remember that first night, man, I saw young people, all ages, all kind of teenagers. I don't know what they went through, but I went up there. I was an introvert. I was, I didn't feel like I belonged. I got all these issues. I don't even know where to even begin. And we're having service, and man, I'm just seeing young people just crying, and it's kind of like I am right now, and the Lord just touching them. I remember I wanted it so bad. Well, I wanted it so bad. And I didn't even know what to do. It's crazy. You can be in church your whole life and still not know what to do sometimes.
That's exactly right.
And that next morning was chapel, Thursday morning. And the preacher got up. He was talking about surrender. And he was talking about just, surrendering. How we just needed to give ourselves to Jesus. We need to give ourselves to him above everything else. And that he wants all of us. And I believe the Lord speaks to people. I believe that. You can't convince me of it. Nobody will be able to convince me of it. And I remember that day, I didn't just want to be saved. That was the thing. I didn't just want to be saved. I wanted to be made whole. And so that day in between services, I went to the cabin, the boys' cabin. And I got down and prayed. And I said, Jesus, I want you. I want you so bad, Jesus. I talked about it last night in Hebrews. It said that without faith, it's impossible to please him. And it says that those who come must believe that he is a rewarder of them who diligently seek him. And that means to crave him. And as I was praying, I said, I want you. And then I heard it just so loud in that room. And it was, if you want me, you got to let them go. And a lot of times people don't experience freedom because they don't know how to let go.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And in that room, I can say this unequivocally. I let every bit of it go. I let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgave my stepdad. I forgave my dad. Forgave my uncle. Forgave all of them. And that night, July 9th, 1997, at 9 p.m., I got filled with the Holy Ghost.
Mm.
And so my stepdad, and you can Google him. I have no ill will towards him. Uh, he's in prison right now. He made it on America's Most Wanted. He was a bad dude. He's in a prison cell right now. I said all of that to say this. Just because you've been through sexual abuse, just because you've been through physical abuse, the world will tell you, enemy will tell you, you'll never be happy. You can't have a smile. You're not going to experience these things. And I'm telling you, that's a lie. I've got 4 of the most amazing kids.
Yes, you do.
I got an amazing wife. The Lord has done more for me. I've got family where I didn't have family in the natural. God's gave me family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my dad, he's saved now. You know, we don't have that father-son relationship. Sometimes I feel like I'm more his daddy. I'm not saying nothing that I wouldn't say if he was in here, and he would tell you that it's true. But this was the thing that is I had to forgive. And here was the thing, I didn't just have to, I wanted to.
Yes.
I wanted to. And so my dad, you know, like he'll come over and I love him and you know, he gets me tickled. And you know, he called me on the phone and he apologized. He's like, I'm sorry I wasn't the dad to you. You know, and I forgave him. I don't hold that against him. I don't live in any kind of, well, I'm not going to be successful. But the blood, that doesn't work against the blood. When we surrender, that's the thing too about faith is trusting God to take you where you didn't think you would ever make it. My stepdad that's in prison right now, my prayer is this. Even though I got scars, even though all the stuff he done to me, I don't hold it against him. My prayer is this. I genuinely pray this. I have begged the Lord that if he's not saved, and I pray that he is, when he gets out, I want to be the one that leads him to the Lord. You know, for me, it's a big forgive. And then to be able to forgive myself and to learn to love myself. Because see, here's the thing. A lot of people, one of the greatest commandments that Jesus gave was to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And a lot of people can't fulfill that commandment because they don't love themselves.
That's exactly right.
And you got to learn to love yourself. Because you are God's creation. Here's the thing. I don't care what you've been through. You are God's beautiful creation. Whatever trauma that you've been through, it does not outweigh the treasure. You are the treasure of God. The devil hates you because when he sees you, he sees the reflection of God's creation. He sees God. And I had to learn to love myself. Now I love people that, you know, Ashley, she gets frustrated sometimes at me, you know, but I love big. But because here's the thing, just as much as all that stuff has happened to me, I've made some doozies in my life. And the Lord's forgave me and he's loved me. But there's no treasure or there's no trauma that you've been through that's too big for Jesus. It don't intimidate him. You don't have any baggage in your life that's overwhelming to him. There's nothing that's going to run him off. You got to surrender. That's the key, is surrender and giving it all to him. Opening up your heart, every part of it, and fully trusting in that he'll get you out of it. I'm gonna give it to you. I'm over here snotting and crying.
Well, that was amazing, and I'm not sure that I can even follow that. I mean, that's an amazing story. I knew most of all that, and
Yeah.
and you've shared the biggest majority of that with me in the past. And one thing that I would add, from my standpoint, talking about you got to love yourself. You know, I know in my case, just in my story, boy, I had a hard time loving myself. My past was pretty ugly, and not probably as ugly as a lot of people's, but it's uglier than
Yeah.
for me. It was ugly, and I didn't like it, and wasn't happy with it. Um, only until I learned how to forgive myself. And then once that happened, the love came.
Yeah.
Then the love came, because then he gave me a whole new heart. He gave me a whole new outlook on things. He gave me a whole new perspective about
Yeah.
what all this meant, because sometimes there's a lot of confusion comes along, and like I say, and not always is people good to explain things like this
Yeah.
in the places that we need to be finding it,
Yeah.
and um, it's hard to talk to your spouse about things like this. I mean, and she's sitting here, but it was hard to talk back then about that. Yeah, I love, and then me well. I love big or I
Yeah.
don't love. I mean, it's one of them.
Yeah.
I'm one of those. I don't like that about me. Never did.
Yeah.
Now since that's been a big thing in my life, and the forgiveness is so huge in my life for everybody.
Yeah.
And I guess that's my biggest message is about forgiveness, because I've been forgiven a lot, way more than I deserved,
Yeah.
on every level,
Yeah.
on every level. And but I still, the message is, and I think that's why he's drawn me down to the jail and doing that down there, is because
Yeah.
no matter how bad I thought it was, I hadn't went too far.
Yeah.
Because when I asked him to forgive me, he knew my heart, and Jeremy, he was right there. And I'm gonna tell you, he hasn't forsaken me, not once.
Yeah.
Not once.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for that. Man, I'm thankful. My upbringing was nothing like that. I mean, I didn't have, I was blessed. Really. My dad loved us kids. He lived in Michigan.
Yeah.
But it wasn't he didn't love us kids. He did,
Yeah.
and done what he could
Yeah.
under the circumstances. My mother was probably as much anything about keeping us separated from him, because she was bitter. As an adult, I see that too. I can get that. Where I was blessed at is the Lord put a man named Claude Willis in my life, and he married a cousin of mine who I love dearly. Dora was just like, she's just special. Um, but Claude was a guy that was rough around every edge. I don't know how it's worded. I mean, but he was the kind of guy that if he loved you, he'd go to the end of the world for you. And if he didn't like you, hang on. He'd go that far the other way too. But he saw after me and my brother Mark. He helped my mom. What I'm saying is he was the kind of guy in our life that you didn't want to disappoint.
Yeah.
Wasn't because she was afraid of him, even though we were. I never thought of it being afraid.
Yeah.
It was never like that. He never made me feel afraid.
Yeah.
He made me feel secure. But he taught me what respect was too.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so and as growing up as a child, I can remember this, and so this is important for people to hear. For me as an athlete, I played ball, and that was always important to me and my family. My brothers above me, and my mom had to work. She's a nurse. My mom, I don't know that ever saw me play ball. If she did, it was not very many times.
Yeah.
She had to work. I mean, it just was no way that she could do and then go as much as we were going. She always made a way for us to do it.
Yeah.
It's just that she couldn't do it. I mean, and as an adult, I can understand that too.
Yeah.
You got to make a living, and especially as a single parent, for her, it was tough. But the one who never missed a game, never, every game I ever played in, I don't care what it was, Claude was there.
Yeah.
And as a kid, and now as an adult, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It was important then. It's more important now.
Yeah.
Looking back at that and thinking, I really was blessed.
Yeah.
Claude loved on me and Mark in ways like that he could. He didn't have boys. He had two girls, and he loved them both. Elise and Christy, he loved them dearly. I mean, with all his heart. And Dora was his pride and joy. Dora was his everything.
Yeah.
But he loved me and Mark too. And I get emotional with that because, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for people and he wasn't Christian. He wasn't in church. Dora was.
Yeah.
Dora was wonderful. She still is wonderful. But Claude was rough around every edge. But when it came to loving, he knew how, and he knew he ruled with a strong arm
Yeah.
in life with the people around. And he ruled with a strong arm with us as far as, son,
Yeah.
you're going to respect your mama.
Yeah.
And not that I wouldn't have, but you're going to respect her one with the other.
Yeah.
That kind of a message. But it was never an issue. You just knew, he taught you valuable lessons in life. So see, I can look on the other side of that, and I'm thankful for that. And then, man, they just started dating and and I was blessed there.
Yeah.
With her, and then her dad. Sean talks about him all the time, and in his preaching and stuff about how his papa was his everything. As far as, and I look back at that times too, because it wasn't just to my kids; it was to me too.
Yeah.
He was a guy that he treated me no different than he treated Dina. What I'm saying, he loved on me.
Yeah.
He loved on me like he did her. He taught me things. He's the one who taught me how to tie a tie.
Yeah.
He didn't teach me how to shave, but he taught me how to tie a tie. He taught me things, like that, and never lost his temper with me. Never lost his, um, looking back at all those stories, I got a lot to be thankful for. And so my forgiveness in life, my biggest one, when talking about big forgivenesses, and you've just explained yours, and you poured your heart out right there to everybody. And that's some big forgiveness to walk away and be able to say, I forgive all y'all, for all that, Mine, my biggest forgiveness, my biggest one had to be,
Yeah.
could never be who I needed to be to God or to my family, my friends. I could never be anything till I learned how to forgive me. Because that's where I was the most disappointed.
Yeah.
I just was. And it wasn't that I was that bad. It just, I expected more out of me.
Yeah.
I expected better out of me.
Yeah.
And still do.
Yeah.
And now in the promise I made to the Lord, and I'm gonna keep it till I die. I said, Lord, you forgive me. I will go the rest of my days, the rest of my life, telling people about it. And so, and all this bad year I've just had, and I told this other day, the one thing I ain't lost my smile yet, and I won't lose it. I'm bound and determined that I'm not giving Satan credit. I'm just not. I refuse to do that. Like Sean was talking about last night in his opening. And when I've heard you talk about, there's one angel,
Yeah.
one. All God has to do is dispatch one angel,
That's right.
and old Bluefoot
Yeah.
gonna get bound and kicked into the lake of fire. One,
Yeah.
and if it only takes one for that, and how come we give him so much dominion in our lives? And I refuse to do that. I mean, it's been a rough year, yes,
Yeah.
but I'm not giving him all the credit. I mean,
No.
I'm 63-year-old, and I ain't been so good to myself. So maybe
Yeah.
part of this was my own fault.
Yeah.
I ain't giving him the credit.
That's the truth.
Who I am going to give the credit to is the Lord who got me through it. And it's all behind me now, back there. Come through it without any kind of anxiety, any kind of, and so give him all that credit, didn't lose my smile.
Yeah.
I didn't lose, I'm thankful.
Yeah.
So I got a lot to be thankful
Oh,
for there.
yeah.
So in the forgiveness, and that's kind of what this message is about. And that story was, I hate that you went through all that, but I understand exactly why you're the man you are today, and the
Yeah.
pastor and preacher that you are today, and the dad you are today, the husband you are today, and the friend you are today.
Yeah.
It takes sometimes lessons and things to
Yeah.
create us to who we are,
Yeah.
but nothing bigger than that forgiveness.
Oh, that's the one thing. Like when all of those things, and I said this last night, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna shut up because you got to go to the jail.
Mhm.
All of those things, all of our traumas, all of the warfare, the enemy will tell us that it makes us unqualified,
Yeah.
but the blood says we're unstoppable.
I love that.
It's just you're not unqualified because of the blood. You're unstoppable.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thankful for, and I'm
Yeah.
thankful for you guys.
Well, and we are for you too.
Yeah.
one thing to go with that, and then we're gonna close this thing out of here. But I always say is the one most valuable thing that I possess, besides my forgivenesses, and I always talk about, but it's my testimony.
Yeah.
I have a testimony that it's so special to me. I'm so thankful. And Dana asked me one time not long ago. She said about this podcast. She said, "Well, what's your favorite one? And what's this and that?" And I said, "Well, I don't know about which one my favorite one is, but my one I'm most disappointed in was the night that I gave my testimony." I said, "Because I shortcutted it."
Yeah.
And I said, "How in the world you can shortcut what God's done for you?"
Yeah.
And it was an hour and 40 something minutes long.
Yeah.
And I said, "It should have been 4 hours, and I couldn't have done it justice in 4 hours." And I should have done it and break it down in segments because he's been so good to me.
Yeah.
But to say all that to say is one that I always tell him, I said, the one thing that God thinks about our testimony, he thinks so much of that because that's what he does for us. That is his special thing he does for the individual. And it's so important that he put it in the same sentence with the most important thing in the world, which is the blood of the Lamb. So the most important things in the world is you're known by the word of your testimony, the blood of the Lamb, and the word of your testimony. In the same sentence. That's how important that is. And when I got the revelation of that, it's like, man, thank you, Jesus. I get it. I get it. I understand now why I bubble in here so much with my heart so good and feel so good is because that's what it means to him. And I catch that. I know what he's done for me. And I know who he's put in my life and how he's done the things and getting to do things like this and go down and speak to a bunch of men in a jail down there. And a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the thought I would have been doing this. But through him, oh man.
Yeah.
So I just get plumb excited about it. And I hope that it portrays out because I mean it's sincere. When I say that I'm the one that's honored and I am the one that's honored and blessed to get to do this. And I love it and love every second of it. And I just hope people are getting what what the meaning is to that because it's big to me. But anyway, we'll get out of here and man, this has been two good ones tonight. And I thank you for that. And then I sure enjoyed our conversation about Israel. That was wonderful. We'll talk some more about that down the road. But I'm glad you got that experience.
Me too.
It changed my world.
Me
And
too.
yeah,
Me too.
so anyway, but we'll get off of here and let y'all go and know that we love you. Lord, have mercy. I can't say it enough how much we love all y'all and our Barn family. And when I always talk about the Barn family, this is part of it right here.
Right.
And my personal family and for me, I thank every one of you. And we'll be back out here again. We're doing some more. Be back out for Tuesday night and get you one drop there. And I just love this. I can't wait till the night. The jail. I'm expecting big things, and I hope it gets. I mean, I hope it's one of them teardowns tonight where I can come back Tuesday and share it with y'all. And I do. I mean, I hope it's that good. There's a revival going on in that jail down there, whether people believe it or not. It's amazing how them guys are hungry for the word, and I love that, and I love to see that hunger. So anyway, I'm gonna get off here and thank all y'all again, and we'll be back for Tuesday night. So, no from Real Barn Talk. We love you guys, and see you soon. Bye. Army.
Out here where the hay meets the sky, Roger's got stories you can't deny. Faith, family, and everyday grind. Pull up the seat, you'll find peace of mind. Barn Talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan. It's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my friend. The rooster crows and the coffee brews, sharing the faith and some hard-earned dues. Every hammer swing, every prayer sign. Roger's here to talk life, yours and mine. Barn Talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan. It's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my friend. Through Midwest fields and small town cheer, you're always welcome, just lending ear. Patchwork stories and lessons unfold. Barn Talk's a treasure worth more than gold. Barn Talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan. It's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my